But Dave was a prosecutor. He swore an oath to protect and defend, and he's going to talk to you today a little bit about Article 1, Section 8. Thank you.
Thank you, Keith, and thank you everyone for coming out today on this rainy day, but in fact it's a very special day. September 17th, 1787 may have been the singular most important day, secular day in human history. The world on September 16th, 1787 consisted of tyrants and czars and despots and kings and sultans. There were no people anywhere in the world that exercised their right of self-government. Small House of Commons in England, maybe, they still had a powerful king and they still had a House of Lords. Nowhere in the world did people govern themselves. September 17, 1787 set the machinery in motion for that to change. Over the next year, public debates in taverns, in churches, in stores, everywhere people could be, up and down the continent, they debated the matters of the Constitution, and that's when free speech was actually born in this country, 1787 to 1788. It was a change. It was the largest participatory organization of a government in the history of the world at that time. 2015. There's 192 countries in the world. In 123 of those countries, the people participate in a significant and meaningful way in governing themselves. That's what happened on September 17th. That's a mere 1787, a mere 228 years ago, and there was 10,000 years of human history before. That's how important this day that we celebrate today was in history of all humanity, not just the United States of America. During those debates of 87 and 88, one of the things that people were really concerned about was how to establish such a government that had enough power to organize society and yet protect freedom. One of the answers that the founders came up with was built into what's called Article 1, Section 8 of the United States Constitution. Article 1, Section 8 defines the powers of the United States Congress. It defines the subjects that the Congress can deal with. It defines the authority that they can have to deal with that. And here's the common understanding that the founders had of the folks that actually signed the Constitution. Of the 40 that signed the Constitution, 22 were lawyers. The other 40 that signed, the other 18 that signed for the total of 40, while they weren't lawyers, they were businessmen, merchants, they were active in public affairs, so they were all familiar with this. They were familiar with the understanding that in a legal document, the mention of one thing is the exclusion of all others. And so when they mentioned that the Congress would have the power to coin money, to borrow money, and to have debt, to regulate commerce between the states and among the Indian tribes and foreign nations, they meant that that's all the Congress could do. They meant that the Congress could not do anything that wasn't listed. That's an unwritten understanding of the Constitution. When people talk about limited government and enumerated powers, we have to consider the language and the understanding that the men that did this had at the time. And they did have that understanding that if you did not list something, there was no authority to engage in it. And that operated pretty well for a long time. Things began to change probably somewhere in the 1940s, but now we've come to a different place regarding how the Constitution operates, how our government operates, not how the Constitution operates, but how the government created therefrom operates. We've come to a place where we have a United States president that says boldly, if the Congress won't act, I will. There's nothing that says in the Constitution you can do that. You have a Supreme Court that creates a tax where none existed to allow the Congress to operate outside of Article 1, Section 8. You have a United States Senate that imposes $500 billion worth of taxes when that, in Article 1, is given directly to the House of Representatives. Now, there's you can do a lot of scholarly articles, and there's a lot of reasons how we got to this point and how things changed. And of course, I'm a lawyer. I could probably talk for the next 2 hours. Sometimes the answers to different things come in unlikely places. And a couple of days ago, I was getting a haircut. And I was talking to the woman that was cutting my hair, and she said, you're getting a haircut, and you're doing anything special? And I said, well, I'm going down to do some talks for Constitution Day. And by the way, a little plug, if you're not busy at 5 o'clock at Ave Maria University, you'll get the hour-long version. And at 7 o'clock at FGCU, you'll get the hour-long version. So it's going to be a busy day. I love Constitution Day. But at any rate, I was talking to the woman who cut my hair. And I told her that this was a very, very special day. And she said to me, she says, yeah, that's really great that you're involved in that, and there's a lot of people involved. She says, it's too bad our leaders don't pay attention to the Constitution anymore. And I paused for a second, and I asked her, I said, whose fault is that? And she paused, and she officially said, ours. We all have the duty to make the Constitution work. We all have the duty to hold the Congress, the President, the Supreme Court to the terms of Article 1, Section 8, to the terms of Article 2, to the terms of Article 3. And the only way we can do that is if we understand what those terms are. So I encourage everyone to find out and study and learn what the terms are, what they meant, and what they meant in 1787. Not what they mean today, not how they've been interpreted. Too many people, when they talk about constitutional law, they talk about the opinions of the United States Supreme Court. By golly, those are just opinions. Those are just opinions. And the only way you can do that is to study. It's wonderful that people carry constitutions in their pocket, but you have to read between the lines. You have to understand what the understanding of those men that wrote that thing, that gave the gift to the world, that gave freedom and participatory government to 123 nations around the world. And I too will add my thanks to the people in both our military and our law enforcement that keep us safe and allow us to exercise our freedoms. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dave. Joseph, would you come forward?